What does it mean to harvest plants in a way that can truly give back to the land? Herbalist and teacher Sean Croke has spent years thinking about that question and living it. In this conversation, we talk about his approach to ethical wildcrafting, his nuanced views on invasive species, and the tree planting projects around his farm, including the ongoing challenge of sharing those trees with a very hungry local beaver population. It's a conversation about reciprocity, respect, and finding balance in our relationship with the wild. If you stay till the end, Sean will talk a little bit about his school and his new book, both of which I will link in the description. We started off in Sean's field of calendula and talked a little bit about his move away from commercial wildcrafting and into herb farming.
In the very start of my herbal career, I basically wildcrafted fresh herbs for medicine makers for money, and which is really a fun and beautiful thing to do. And it's tricky, it's ethically tricky, or it's morally tricky. I love the wild plants, and working with wild plants has changed my life and been very transformative to me. And I encourage people to work with wild plants, and capitalism just destroys all things that are beautiful. And it's easy to let your ethics slip when there's money involved, or when there's you go to a patch and you're with an order for a specific number of pounds, and you're can this patch handle this order? But then you're the customer's always right, or whatever. I gotta do the thing that my clients want me to do.
So rather than your own moral compass or knowledge of what's healthy for stands dictating how much you harvest, it's there's an external force that doesn't understand those limitations.
Right. And both me wanting to satisfy my clients, and then also needing to make money.
Right. Survive.
To eat or whatever. And so I pivoted kind of away from that specific model, more into making tinctures and providing people with things that I make more money by doing that, and so I don't need to pick as much, and being more selective with who my clientele are and what plants I offer and in what quantities I'm willing to offer them. But also simultaneously trying to grow more. And we ended up on this farm. We have so much space here. And so I have the space, I might as well turn it into plants. And I feel it's also really easy to be to slip into the people just shouldn't wildcraft train of thought, which I really do not think is true. And I really think that buying the story that humans are bad for or that humans are not natural, and that humans are just bad for the natural environment, and that engaging with things in a wildcrafty kind of way is just bad, I think is a slippery slope to just being really alienated from nature. And if we're really alienated from nature, you ain't gonna take care of it,
Right.
But I do think that the thrill of wildcrafting, which is strong, the more that you can start off and get wildcrafting weedy, invasive plants in a way that can fill up your apothecary, can benefit some of the plants around them that are getting crowded out, maybe benefit the landowner or whatever, the farmer. Meanwhile, learn your plant propagation, and then as you're engaging with plants that do not propagate themselves as readily, then are less weedy, if then you can be doing that at the same time, feels like the best way to go about it to me. More so than just not engaging with wild plants.
People who harvest wild plants often support the populations of their plants through propagating them in the wild. And Sean shared an eye-opening story with me.
Some of those tricks around wildcrafting that don't actually work for plant propagation. With Devil's Club, for instance, I've been planting out Devil's Club cuttings every year for probably 10 years. And I was initially taught that when you harvest Devil's Club, if you just take the tops that you don't want to peel the bark off because the bark is skinny, it's not really worth it, and just stick them in the ground in the spring, those will root, they'll be fine. And so for years I was just great, I'm not harming these patches, no problem. I'm replanting all these tops, they're totally fine. And then one year I was is this working? And I brought flagging with me, and I flagged all of my cuttings. And then I came back next year, and they were all dead. And then I started doing that with other things too, and realizing that the majority of them were dying. I currently have it where Probably like 60 to, I'm having like 60 to 70% survival currently, which is now like, yeah, you make them in the fall, they need to be big. You got to get them way in the ground. It needs to be wet, like actively wet there. And I think actually they need to be near their friends. Like I always want to like start new patches, but you know, the plants all talk to each other underground. Yes.
Yeah.
And like, I really think that like when it's just the little cuttings and they're by themselves, they can't do that. But if there's more Devil's Club even somewhat far away, I think that they're like, I got you, buddy, you know, and they like help them, they send them food or, you know, or whatever.
Well, I'm curious too if there's an aspect that where you're wanting to plant them is not where it wants to grow.
That's the thing.
Like it knows where it wants to grow.
Yes.
And so if you pay attention to that.
Yes, totally. Yeah, well, and that's such a like, learning that it's not about me, although I'm part of it. But yeah, learning to like listen to the plants and what they want to do.
Yeah.
And what the landscape wants to, you know, because they're all like in it together. It's just a long process to like figure it out. And there's a lot of failures along the way. I think herbalism for me it's as much about learning to be in like good relationship with the land upon which I live, and just learning about the land upon which I live, even with like a lot of failures. Every once in a while it works. And just like it's you know, the process is the product or whatever, you know, it's the act of engaging with the plants and trying to learn how to help them to thrive and me to thrive and the landscape to thrive. You know, it's just like it's a beautiful process, and it doesn't always result in like a tangible thing that I have now made, you know, but I just love plants and I'm dedicated to like learning more about them and helping them to do well. I feel like I made some comments about climate change depression. You know, I think it's so easy to just fall into like despair and apathy given the current state of the world. And respect, you know, that's legit. Just trying to help plants be more abundant and trying to help the landscape make it through this time of great changes makes me feel better. And it helps me be less sad.
As someone who has never owned land myself, I asked Sean what folks who don't own land can do to help out this cause.
I mean, you can grow plants anywhere, you know. You can grow willow cuttings in a pot in the city. And I think like, yeah, there's plants all over the place and you can encourage them to become more abundant no matter where you are.
Right.
Also, getting involved with, like around here we have like United Plant Savers, you know those guys?
Yeah, so like restoration organizations or nurseries or like Many Trees Project.
Oh, Many Trees, yeah, are my friends.
I can link that in the...
Yeah. That's a great example. Many Trees, yeah, it's a group of people that want to do something about climate change and food security. And so they got a bunch of nuts and they germinated the nuts because nuts are seeds, right? And made thousands and thousands of nut trees, and then they just give them away for free. And yeah, they're just a project where they make trees that, you know, mostly make food and give them away to as many people as possible so that they'll go and plant them. Yeah. And I think like even if you don't have access to land to do stuff like this, you can always make baby plants, you know.
Totally.
You can do that anywhere. You can do that in a closet. Yeah, even propagating your houseplants, you know, like helps. Propagating a houseplant will improve the air quality of your house. You have a friend. You know, and you can make them more abundant, and like even on a really small scale like that, like that matters, you know. I think it's like just trying to be more on the life creation side of things versus the like life destructive side of things.
Like if everyone were doing that little tiny bit,
it'd make a huge difference.
It would make a huge difference.
Yeah, it'd make a huge difference. Like, I mean, especially thinking about trees. Yeah. Like, if everybody in the country started one tree from seed and took care of them until they were big enough to plant them outside, and then just planted them outside somewhere, that'd be huge.
And then maybe watered it every so often while it's small.
It'd be huge, you know?
Yeah.
It would like make such a big difference.
We got to talking about forest clear cuts, and I really appreciated Sean's caring outlook on them.
It's like everything is gone, total, destroyed landscape, but there'll be like a tiny little stream, and there's like a log that has fallen over the stream from a tree that got cut down. But there's like water there, and there's a little bit of shade there, and there'll be like a little devil's club sticking up and a little Oregon grape a little like, who's that bleeding heart down there? And it's like, they're there, and they're hiding out. And when conditions get better, then they're gonna like come back out and become the forest again.
Another thing I learned is that Sean plants a lot of trees. It's kind of a hobby of his.
As I always like to say, a big part of like gardening or learning to work with plants is just killing so many plants. You can see all these dead ones. And we've also lost, there's beavers on the river, bless the beavers, I love them. And they have eaten definitely like hundreds of cuttings that I've put in the ground.
I'm sure. That's probably, I assume that's why you have these cages
but
around
this
plants.
kind doesn't work. They'll just pull this off. Like the fencing is not small enough.
Yeah.
So they push it against, and then they just cut it. And then at a certain point, they just learned that they could just pull these things off. We put in almost 100 mixed cottonwood Pacific willow down here. They ate all of them. The cottonwood specifically, they think are delicious. That whatever the resiny.
I bet it smells great to me.
Yeah,
as
they're
a
like
human,
hell
so.
yeah. And I'm like, you beavers, if you just leave them alone for a few years, they'll be established. And then if you cut them down, they're coppiced. But they don't understand. And they've eaten so many of the sticks. But I like to say that, and this is like true with a lot of that work. Like, planting willow cuttings is just my hobby. And if it works or not doesn't matter, Like, I feel like it's easy to be like, well, that was a failure, if like the beavers get them or whatever. But also it's just what I do with my life. And even if only like 1/100th of the trees make it, it's like, it's a good thing to do. Yeah, these, we also got from Burnt Ridge, and we put these in the ground by like 2020 when they're like this big. Just last year they started flowering.
Oh, awesome. So this is your first berry.
Yeah. Can you find berries?
I just saw one.
That's so cool. Yay! Yeah. Boom. We're making babies.
And once those berries, the birds will eat them and then go poop them out and more trees.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty big for 5 years,
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like we've put so much, we've planted many, many hundreds of trees, and many hundreds of them have died,
Yeah.
And it's been so much like, there's been a lot of just like, what are we even doing? But then like, just the past couple of years, as things are actually getting established and are getting big, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, this is where, like, these cottonwoods are huge.
Yeah. And maybe are past the point where they're just going to die.
I hope so. Yeah, like I think we're going to cut off irrigation soon here.
Yeah.
We do still water these. But I think they're like established.
Yeah.
And then, just thinking about, they'll be here however long.
On our tour of the farm, we encountered a population of reed canary grass, which is considered highly invasive in our area, and it got us to talking about invasive species.
My feelings about invasive species are complex, Like, I think it's like, the war on invasive species, I think, is foolhardy in a lot of ways. And encouraging people to hate plants, I do not understand. And I weed my garden, Like, I do think that, like, some plants are very pushy, and it does make sense to eradicate them, or, like, keep them under control in some areas. But also, in a time of, like, mass extinction, the species that are doing well also we should be appreciating them, to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And not that they, them pushing other species out that are more delicate is real. And again, I don't deny that, but I worked in like wetland reclamation kind of ecology work for years, and just watching, like, it's just so weird to come into an area that is lush, abundant, but it's the wrong plants. And then you just kill them all, and then come in with like the right plants and put them in the ground and they die, you know, like it's often not very successful.
Yeah, it sounds a little presumptuous, actually.
Yeah, well, and it's like, yeah, to like go back to the correct,
Yeah.
you know, everything is in flux. Everything is
Yeah.
always changing, like including the plant populations of an area. And yeah, there's some like hubris in assuming that we can understand what is like the ideal plant species to have in an area. And yeah, the flare is just so beautiful. We're a little bit past, but you know, when they're just in flower, those purple flowers, they're so gorgeous.
You can actually make coil baskets with this.
That's
too.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah, like in like kind of like you would make a straw basket is like a traditional
Cool.
like
Yeah,
Irish,
yeah.
Scottish,
With
English
like
basketry type.
this part.
Yeah, you
stem,
just
yeah.
you pick like big, you know, sheaths of it, and then you basically sew it on itself as you go.
Cool. Yeah, that's
Works
fun.
pretty good. So there are uses for it.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean biofuels. You can make paper out of them.
Paper? Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I also just had to ask if Sean had any visions for the future of his farm.
But yeah, I have dreams of running animals instead of doing hay, and then reintroducing things like camas and trying to like as much as I can help the prairie species to like thrive out here again.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my dream. So here's a beautiful eucalyptus. Isn't this a nice one? This is from seed.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, this is from seed.
It's such a strong. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love eucalyptus, especially the like a really strong kind.
I really love them too.
This is
Yeah.
gonna be a big tree someday.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just for people in the comments that live in California, eucalyptus is not invasive here. So
No, they die. They like they get to a certain age and then they just fall over and die.
Yeah.
But I want to grow the. You know, yeah, I'm an essential oil distiller. I'm trying to if I could
gonna
make
ask.
eucalyptus essential oil from the land someday, that would be really.
I
fun.
feel like this species would be a good species because it's so strong
It's
the
so
smell,
nice.
which means it's going to make a lot of essential oil.
Yeah, it's
theoretically.
really nice.
Sean has been offering 9-month programs about plants and herbalism for a long time, so I asked him to share a little bit about his school and what he teaches there.
Hawthorn School, which I believe this is year 10,
Wow.
by the way, which is wild. Yeah. It is a 9-month program. It meets for 1 weekend a month for 9 months. It's all outside, it's all in the field, and it's a lot about, meeting the plants where they live and meeting them as people. It is a lot about wildcrafting and medicine making and working with the plants as, we do a lot of plant sits, take the plant, sit with them, kind of vibe them out, meditative practice. And it is a lot about plant propagation. When we're out in the field, we're transplanting seedlings and planting cuttings and gathering seed. It's hyper local. It's about the plants around here. It's a lot about gardening too. We do a lot of work in the garden. I distill essential oils. We distill essential oils together, which people always think is really fun. We go to a lot of different places that are unique to the Cascadian landscape. It's a lot about the plants. It's a lot about meeting them. It's a lot about getting them in your body. It's a lot about meeting the landscape and just like being present with the landscape. And we do learn the plants and we do learn specific medicinal uses of them or ways to work with them as medicines. And I I'm a clinical herbalist. Although that's not like the majority of what my practice is as an herbalist is, but I am a clinical herbalist and I am trained as such. And so we touch upon that. And I do a little bit of like intro to clinical herbalism, even just teaching people about plant sits, just like sitting with the plants and letting them interact with you and heal you, you heal them. That process is just like very liberating for people. People end up with a stocks apothecary if they have garden space. We do a gardening class, and I'm really into perennial herbs, and so we'll divide my perennials, put them in pots, and send everyone home with them.
Yeah.
There are surely like 100 more herb gardens like in the world, you know, that are all from my baby plants, just like getting them out there.
Sean also released a book right after COVID called One Time Around the Wheel.
The book starts around the winter solstice, and then it goes around the wheel of the year, like through spring, summer, fall, and back to the winter, covering the different plants, kind of as the wild plants as they're ready outside, and talking about things like gardening, you know, in the time of year in which you would be doing them. So it's basically like 1 year in my life as an herbalist. The book is basically like my school in book form. So it's also a good book, like if someone is interested in studying with me and like can't afford the school or it doesn't make sense for them, like this is a good way to basically get all that information. And yeah, it's like, it's hyper local. Like I think the furthest away that this book talks about is Central Eastern Oregon. So it's very much like a Pacific Northwest herbal book.
If you enjoyed this conversation and you want to see the full version, you can support my work over on Patreon, where I share extended cuts, extra footage, behind-the-scenes stories, and monthly live classes for herbalists and plant lovers. You'll find the link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.